The Iron Bowl, Auburn traveling to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, about an 11.5 point favorite. The total in the low 50s, around 52. This game's Saturday, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. The Crimson Tide have won 4 straight against the Auburn Tigers. That's their longest win streak against Auburn since winning 9 in a row from 1973 to 1981. I'll be on the call alongside Sean McDonough and Molly McGrath for the Iron Bowl. I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to call this game. This game means so much to me, and I'm very, very grateful and honored to have the opportunity to call it alongside the rest of my crew. Just an amazing, amazing group, and I'm excited to have this opportunity with them. Question number 1, can Auburn run the football? That's the big question. That's been the question for the Auburn Tigers. Now, it should come as no surprise that Auburn is a team that wants to lean very heavily on establishing the ground and pound. It also should not come as a huge surprise that their win-loss record is almost 100% determined by how efficiently they run the football. Their 5 best rushing performances this season all resulted in victories. Kentucky, 326, New Mexico, 268, Louisiana Monroe, 203, Alabama A&M, 177, and Texas A&M, 168. Those are their 5 best rushing performances. All 5 were Auburn wins. Their 6 worst rushing performances all resulted in losses. Their best rushing performance in a loss was against Arkansas, where they ran for $146, but they turned it over 5 times in that game. So it's pretty simple. There's a magic number. There's a Mendoza line for the Auburn Tigers. If they run for more than 147 yards, they win. Pretty simple. They need to feed Jarquez Hunter. He's their outstanding running back. And this is an offense. We know what this offense is all about. They rely a lot on RPOs. They want to allow Peyton Thorne, their quarterback, to read the defense. They want to allow him to read the defensive line. I also think he's pretty good with the ball in his hands himself. He's not going to scare you to death by running the football, but Peyton Thorne, I think, is a very effective runner when he does decide to pull it. So sometimes the RPOs, they can kind of cloud the decision-making for Peyton Thorne, which is why I think Auburn is going to commit more to call it and run it runs. Few less RPOs and just force feed Jarquez Hunter when the opportunity presents itself. Because if he finishes this game against Alabama with less than 25 carries, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them to win the game. Going against an Alabama defense this weekend that altogether hasn't really been that bad against the run. They've had some moments where it's been pretty good. They give up about $143, but against Tennessee and Oklahoma, those have been their 2 games where you look at them and they gave up more yards against those 2 teams on the ground than anybody. 214 yards against Tennessee, 257 yards against Oklahoma. They're going to have to be better against the run because this is a group that will be committed to it if they eliminate some of the RPO decision-making for Peyton Thorne. Question number 2, will Auburn's run game set up some big plays on the outside? Now, Cam Coleman and Keandre Lambert-Smith have each had 100-plus receiving yards in Auburn's last 2 games. They're the first Auburn duo to have 100 receiving yards in consecutive games in school history. So these guys have been playing at a really high level all year long. Well, I take that back. Keandre Lambert-Smith has been playing at a really high level. Cam Coleman has started to come on here as the season's gone on. There were some inconsistencies with his performance early in the year. He was a true freshman and being asked to do an awful lot. But now you can tell he's more comfortable and has developed that rapport with Peyton Thorne, and his confidence level is sky high based on how he's played the last 2 weeks. One of the most interesting matchups in the game might be the cornerback tandem that Alabama has in Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown working against Cam Coleman and Keandre Lambert-Smith. So we'll be watching that very, very closely. Question number 3, will Auburn protect the football? That's been a huge question mark all season long. And if you look at Auburn, I think if you ask anybody that have watched them this year, they are much better than their 5-6 record would indicate. Why are they 5-6? Because they've been painfully bad when it comes to taking care of the football. They are 127th in the FBS in turnover margin. They have turned it over 20 times. In their defense, they've been much better. in the second half of the season. And of those 20 turnovers, 10 came in just 2 games. Against Arkansas, they had 5, and against Cal, they had 5. So they're going to have to be really smart with the football because this is an Alabama defense that is outstanding when it comes to making life difficult on the opponents by getting hands on the football. Alabama's number 2 right now in the FBS in takeaways. Notre Dame's number 1 with 26. Alabama's forced 25. So it's a really good group on that side of the ball in turning over the opposition. Question 4, can Alabama take some of the pressure off of Jalen Milroe? Like Auburn, Alabama's success comes when they really commit to running the football. Their 3 worst rushing performances this year were against Vandy, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. All 3 of those games, they lost. They did not eclipse 84 rushing yards in any of those 3 games. Against Vandy and against Tennessee and Oklahoma, way too much responsibility was put on the shoulders of Jalen Milroe. And Jalen Milroe is an amazing player. He's really, really talented, very, very gifted, but he is not the type of guy that can shoulder as much of the burden as they've put on him at times in their defeats. Against Vanderbilt, 31 of their 45 offensive snaps were on Jalen Milroe, whether it's throwing it or running it. Against Tennessee, 59 of their 79 offensive snaps were on Jalen's shoulders. And then against Oklahoma, 41 of 57 offensive snaps were Milroe passes or runs. Another thing too, Jalen also has to accept some responsibility here as well. He has to be willing to distribute because there have been times when there's big moments in the game, when there's big games and big plays to be made, he tries to play hero ball. And when things aren't going well and he tries to do it all himself, that can lead to their undoing as well. Question number 5, can Alabama's offense find some answers against the blitz? Their 3 losses this year were ironically to the 3 opponents that blitzed them the most. Vandy, Oklahoma, and Tennessee all blitzed them more than 25% of their dropbacks. And with Jalen liking to see where things are and wanting not to speed that process up too much, I'll be curious to see if Auburn decides to ramp up the pressure a little bit because they're coming off of their lowest blitz total of the year against Texas A&M, where they blitzed on just 12% of Texas A&M's dropbacks. And then finally, question number 6, can Alabama's wide receivers step up? Last week was an awful performance by Alabama's wideouts. They weren't physical. They dropped about 5 passes. It was the most drops they've had this year. And they need to be much better against a really solid secondary that Auburn is going to run out. And drops have had a unique impact on this team this year. Ryan Williams has just 7 all year, which is pretty dang decent for a true freshman that's been targeted 80 times. But 5 of those 7 drops came in their 3 losses, including multiple drops against Oklahoma and against Vandy. So they're going to have to be better at wide receiver to help their quarterback out because it's a really solid defense that they're going to be going against. I will not be making a pick in this game. I'll be watching it there from the booth in Bryant-Denny Stadium alongside Sean McDonough and Molly McGrath. We hope you'll join us at 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC.